Destruction is neither enemy nor curse. It is the natural and inevitable precursor to renewal, the necessary clearing that precedes growth, the crucible in which latent potential is revealed and liberated. The ruins we encounter, whether imposed by fortune, circumstance, or our own misjudgments, are not endpoints but invitations. They are signals that the structures we have built, whether of thought, habit, or life circumstance, have fulfilled their current purpose and must be examined, understood, and transformed. To resist destruction is to resist the flow of life itself, to cling to brittle forms that cannot endure the pressures of reality. To embrace it is to recognize the hidden promise in every collapse, the unseen design within every fracture, and the opportunity within every void. The first principle in engaging with destruction is perception. One must see clearly that destruction is not a personal affront, but a universal law, impartial and unyielding, shaping all that exists. Mountains crumble, rivers carve valleys through stone, storms uproot forests, yet these acts of natural destruction are not malevolent. They are the forces of transformation. So too in human life. Relationships falter, plans disintegrate, empires fall, fortunes vanish, and yet embedded within each loss is the opportunity to rebuild, to redirect, and to realign with what is essential. The perception of destruction as opportunity transforms despair into contemplation, loss into insight, and chaos into a fertile soil for deliberate creation. Acceptance is the next crucial element. To embrace destruction requires the courage to acknowledge reality without distortion, to meet the disintegration of familiar structures with composure rather than resistance, and to internalize the truth that all things are transient. Acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active, discerning engagement with the present. It allows the mind to conserve energy that would otherwise be expended on futile opposition and to redirect that energy toward understanding, strategizing, and constructing anew. Within this acceptance lies liberation, for the individual ceases to be a victim of circumstance and becomes a participant in the creative forces that shape existence. Destruction carries with it a revelatory power. It exposes what is weak, flawed, or unnecessary, laying bare the aspects of life, character, and thought that were previously obscured by habit, illusion, or superficial stability. When old certainties are shattered, one is confronted with the raw material of being, unexamined beliefs, hidden desires, neglected principles, and dormant strengths. This exposure is invaluable, for it allows one to discern which elements are worthy of preservation, which must be reformed, and which are to be abandoned entirely. In this way, destruction functions as both mirror and compass, revealing reality in its unvarnished truth and pointing toward the directions in which reconstruction should proceed. To embrace destruction is to cultivate resilience, the capacity to endure collapse without despair, to observe disintegration without panic, and to respond with deliberate creativity rather than reactive. Fear is the hallmark of a mind that has internalized the laws of impermanence. Resilience is strengthened not in comfort, but in the fire of challenge. It is exercised in the moments when familiar structures fall and the future is uncertain. Each act of composure amidst disruption fortifies the individual, creating an inner citadel capable of sustaining growth, vision, and purpose even when the external world offers no guarantees. Reconstruction begins with discernment. Not all that has been destroyed must be restored, nor should one attempt to recreate what is obsolete or maladaptive. The wise individual examines the debris with both practicality and insight, identifying which principles, habits, and relationships deserve renewal and which should be left behind. This process demands judgment, for the wrong reconstruction can compound errors, while the right reconstruction can elevate the individual to unprecedented levels of effectiveness, integrity, and clarity. Destruction, therefore, is not merely a destructive force. It is a guide, instructing the careful observer in the subtle architecture of necessity and priority. That opportunity lies in the liberation that follows collapse. When old forms crumble, they create space for innovation, creativity, and intentionality. The mind, unburdened by the rigidity of previous structures, can explore new strategies, cultivate new habits, and pursue new visions with freedom and precision. Like a field cleared by fire, the cleared space is fertile for growth, unencumbered by the residues of outdated assumptions or unexamined expectations. Each act of destruction is a reset, a chance to assess values, refine purpose, and construct life with conscious design rather than reactionary improvisation. Courage is essential in this process. To embrace destruction fully requires the willingness to confront uncertainty, to relinquish attachment to comfort, and to engage with the unknown with deliberate audacity. It is easy to cling to what is familiar, to fear the void created by loss, and to resist the imperative of transformation. Yet the individual who summons courage in these moments gains access to possibilities unavailable to the timid or hesitant. The willingness to step into the void, to examine what remains, and to build anew is the expression of mastery over circumstance. The deliberate assertion of agency in a world indifferent to preference. Destruction also functions as a teacher of humility. It reminds the individual that control is often limited, that permanence is illusory, and that reliance on external stability is precarious. The ruins of plans, the collapse of expectations, and the disintegration of structures reveal the boundaries of influence, prompting a recalibration of priorities, a reassessment of effort, and a recognition of what truly matters. Humility in the face of destruction does not diminish the individual. It situates action within the scope of reality, encouraging discernment, measured effort, and the cultivation of inner resources, rather than dependence upon ephemeral externalities. Reflection is critical in translating destruction into renewal. The individual must not merely witness collapse, but must interrogate its causes, assess its consequences, and envision possibilities for reconstruction. Reflection allows for learning to be extracted from adversity, for insights to be preserved, and for wisdom to accumulate. Without reflection, destruction is merely chaos. With reflection, it becomes a deliberate instrument of transformation, illuminating the contours of necessary action and clarifying the principles by which the mind and life may be rebuilt. Destruction is intimately connected with the cultivation of creative agency. It clears the path for intentional action, demanding that the individual engage with life not passively, but as an active architect of thought, habit, and circumstance. Each moment of collapse is also a moment of choice, a call to deliberate action, and an invitation to exercise vision and ingenuity. In this sense, destruction is simultaneously a challenge and a gift. It dismantles stagnation, exposes latent capacities, and provides the raw material for construction, guided by reason, insight, and deliberate purpose. Transformation through destruction also requires patience. The process of rebuilding cannot be rushed. The debris must be assessed, the new foundations carefully laid, and the structures of mind, habit, and life patiently restored with integrity. Impatience invites error, while deliberate pacing ensures that reconstruction is resilient, sustainable, and aligned with enduring principles. The individual who understands this rhythm moves through the cycles of destruction and renewal with composure, recognizing that each phase has its necessity, its lessons, and its intrinsic contribution to mastery. Flaws and failures are not the marks of weakness, nor are they permanent stains upon the character. They are, rather, the most precise instruments through which the mind may measure itself, calibrate its understanding, and cultivate the architecture of wisdom. Each error, each misjudgment, each faltering step is an irreplaceable teacher, offering insight inaccessible through comfort, success, or superficial observation. To encounter failure and recoil in shame is to surrender the opportunity for growth. To examine it with rigor, curiosity, and courage is to transform it into a crucible for refinement, a forge upon which the raw materials of character are tempered into strength. Consider the nature of human error. It is inevitable, inescapable, and often unanticipated. The mind prone to illusion, desire, and prejudice will stumble. The heart, driven by impulse or fear, will misalign with reason. Circumstance, unpredictable and indifferent, will confound expectation. In this inevitability lies the profound lesson. The measure of a life is not in perfection, but in the capacity to perceive missteps without defensiveness, to extract insight without bitterness, and to integrate lessons without surrendering dignity. Failures are not arbitrary punishments. They are mirrors reflecting the contours of thought, the alignment of intention, and the fidelity to principle. The first step in transformation is recognition without evasion. One must confront flaws directly, not obscure them with excuses or rationalizations. To acknowledge error with clarity is to illuminate the precise points at which thought, judgment, or action has deviated from reason and virtue. This clarity is not merely intellectual, it is existential, for it reveals the threads that bind choice to consequence and the areas in which discipline, patience, or courage has been insufficient. Recognition is the necessary prelude to mastery, the foundational act upon which correction, refinement, and elevation may be constructed. Reflection is the instrument through which flaws are transformed into lessons. Each failure contains multiple dimensions: the immediate misstep, the precipitating causes, the subtle interplay of impulse and perception, and the potential avenues for correction. To examine these dimensions with rigor is to cultivate discernment, to sharpen the capacity for judgment, and to attune oneself to the patterns that underlie thought and behavior. Reflection converts the raw material of error into structured understanding, creating a map upon which future decisions may be navigated with increased precision and confidence. Flaws are also a testament to the aspirational nature of human effort. To err is to act, to strive, to engage with the world rather than retreat from it. The existence of failure is therefore inseparable from the existence of ambition and agency. To resent flaws is to reject evidence of engagement. To study them diligently is to embrace the responsibility of conscious participation in one's own life. Each mistake is both a caution and a compass, revealing the terrain that must be navigated, the obstacles that require attention, and the principles that demand greater fidelity. Emotional temperance is essential in this engagement. The mind that becomes reactive to failure, oscillating between shame, anger, or despair, clouds perception and impedes learning. To examine flaws effectively requires equanimity, the ability to observe without distortion, to judge without resentment, and to extract insight without surrendering to self-recrimination. This equanimity is not passive resignation, but active engagement, a disciplined cultivation of composure that allows the individual to confront reality unflinchingly, to measure deficiencies accurately, and to respond with deliberate, reasoned action. Failures are also instructive in their relational dimensions. They illuminate the dynamics between self and other, between intention and impact, between expectation and reception. To examine these relational aspects is to cultivate empathy, foresight, and social intelligence, recognizing that error is rarely isolated but arises within a web of interconnected causes and consequences. By analyzing how flaws affect others, how actions reverberate through relationships, and how intentions are perceived, one cultivates both moral acuity and practical wisdom, integrating the lessons of failure into the architecture of both character and conduct. Patterns emerge when flaws are studied with diligence. One misjudgment may reveal a single lapse, but repeated tendencies indicate structural vulnerabilities in thought, behavior, or virtue. By identifying these recurring motifs, the individual gains access to the deeper currents shaping action, thought, and perception. This is the alchemy of failure, converting isolated missteps into systemic insight, transforming sporadic disappointment into strategic knowledge, and elevating the awareness of self beyond superficial impression into a disciplined comprehension of cause and effect. Flaws also offer the opportunity for creativity and adaptation. Each failure presents a problem requiring novel solutions, alternative strategies, and refined approaches. To engage with failure as a lesson rather than a burden is to activate the faculties of ingenuity and resilience, to experiment thoughtfully with methods of improvement, and to transform obstacles into pathways. The mind becomes both laboratory and canvas, where errors are tested, hypotheses are refined, and solutions are crafted with deliberation, imagination, and disciplined courage. The cultivation of humility is inseparable from this process. Flaws reveal the limits of knowledge, perception, and control. To acknowledge them is not to diminish oneself, but to situate oneself realistically within the scope of human possibility, to temper pride with awareness, and to replace arrogance with deliberate effort. Humility allows for a receptive engagement with the lessons of error, fostering openness to correction, attentiveness to nuance, and a willingness to restructure thought and behavior as needed. It is through this lens that failures cease to be burdens and become instruments of empowerment, offering insight into both what must be corrected and what remains foundationally strong. Persistence in the examination of flaws creates a cumulative effect. Each encounter with error, each reflection, each adjustment strengthens the capacity for discernment, fortifies the faculties of judgment, and enhances the resilience of the mind. This is a process of accretion, where incremental understanding compounds into mastery, where repeated engagement with imperfection sharpens the acuity of thought, and where the disciplined integration of lessons produces a mind increasingly capable of navigating complexity with clarity, composure, and intentionality. Ethical refinement is also a natural consequence. Flaws reveal gaps between principle and practice, between aspiration and execution, and between intention and effect. By studying these gaps carefully, one develops the capacity to align behavior more closely with moral and rational ideals, to act with greater integrity, and to cultivate consistency between thought and action. The lessons of failure are thus inseparable from the cultivation of virtue, producing a mind not only resilient and informed, but morally coherent, capable of sustaining character in the face of both internal temptation and external pressure. Thought to examine flaws as lessons rather than burdens is to adopt a stance of active engagement with reality. It is to recognize that life presents challenges not to punish, but to instruct, not to constrain, but to reveal, not to diminish, but to illuminate the pathways of growth. Every misjudgment becomes data, every setback a signal, every disappointment a lesson in perception, patience, and purpose. The mind, through this disciplined scrutiny, transforms error from a source of suffering into a source of illumination, converting what might have been a chain into a key, what might have been a wound into a teacher, and what might have been shame into a foundation for deliberate and considered advancement. The mind is a citadel, not a mere receptacle of fleeting impressions or idle thoughts, but a structure capable of immense power, clarity, and fortitude when properly constructed. To rebuild it is to embark upon a deliberate journey of cultivation, to dismantle the debris of irrationality, negligence, and habit, and to erect in its place a structure of reason, virtue, and discipline. This reconstruction demands patience, courage, and unwavering attention, for the mind, like the finest architecture, cannot be restored hastily or without deliberate intent. Reason is the cornerstone of this edifice. It is the faculty that discerns the true from the false, the enduring from the ephemeral, and the necessary from the superfluous. Without reason, the mind is a wilderness, overrun by impulsive passions, unexamined beliefs, and the distractions of the senses. To cultivate reason is to train oneself to observe without distortion, to weigh without bias, to act without haste, and to judge without resentment. Each thought must be examined as a stone would be tested before being laid in the foundation, and each judgment tempered by reflection, lest the structure become fragile and prone to collapse. Virtue is the framework that gives shape to this reasoned mind. It is not abstract, nor is it decorative. Virtue is functional, deliberate, and operational. Courage stabilizes the mind when fear assails it, ensuring that reason is not abandoned in moments of peril. Temperance restrains the impulses that would scatter focus, ensuring that desire does not dictate the course of thought or action. Justice aligns the mind with the greater order, connecting individual judgment with the harmonies of community, morality, and universal law. Wisdom integrates these elements, ensuring that decisions are not only consistent with principle, but responsive to circumstance. Together, these qualities form beams and pillars, each supporting the other, creating a mind capable of enduring the stresses of existence while maintaining integrity and composure. Discipline is the labor that maintains the structure, the scaffolding that allows careful reconstruction, the method by which the edifice is strengthened against erosion and decay. It demands consistent effort, repetition, and an unyielding commitment to refinement. A mind rebuilt without discipline is like a house constructed without mortar. The stones may be noble, the design elegant, yet the structure will crumble under pressure. Discipline is the daily engagement with thought, the persistent questioning of assumption, the deliberate selection of action over impulse, the commitment to training both intellect and character. It is in this patient, methodical labor that the mind becomes resistant to the chaos of circumstance, impervious to the seductions of laziness, and impervious to the corrosion of distraction. The act of rebuilding is both creative and surgical. One must excise what is faulty, whether it be erroneous beliefs, unexamined habits, or ungoverned emotional reactions. Simultaneously, one must cultivate what is necessary: clarity of judgment, constancy of purpose, and alignment of intention with reason. This requires the courage to confront oneself with ruthless honesty, to acknowledge weakness without excuse, and to prioritize growth over comfort. The mind, left unattended, accumulates clutter, like sediment settling in a river, obstructing the flow of clarity, insight, and action. To rebuild it is to dredge this sediment, to allow the waters of perception and understanding to run clear, and to channel them with deliberate direction toward the ends that are truly worthy of effort. The process of reconstruction is iterative. One reflection leads to another, each correction strengthening the structure and revealing subtler flaws. It is insufficient to address only the obvious errors, the subtler distortions of thought, the quiet attachments to opinion or impulse, the unconscious inclinations toward self-deception. All must be examined and disciplined. Like a master craftsman attending to the finest joinery, the individual must scrutinize the interstices of thought and habit, ensuring that each element aligns with principle and each connection supports the integrity of the whole. This attention to detail ensures that the rebuilt mind is not only sound but elegant, capable of clarity, creativity, and resilience simultaneously. In the act of rebuilding, the mind becomes its own master. Reason dictates, virtue informs, and discipline enforces, creating a harmonious interplay that is resilient to external perturbations. One does not sway with the fickle winds of fortune, nor is one seduced by the sirens of desire or envy. The rebuilt mind observes, judges, and responds with a measured cadence, guided by principle rather than impulse. It recognizes that control resides in the choices made, in the judgments exercised, and in the consistency with which one adheres to reasoned virtue. External circumstances may remain chaotic, uncertain, or hostile, but the integrity of thought and the fidelity to principle remain inviolable. The reconstruction of the mind is also an exercise in foresight. Each discipline cultivated, each virtue strengthened, and each rational process established creates a foundation for navigating future trials. Like a city fortified against siege, the mind, once rebuilt, can endure the pressures of adversity without fragmentation. It can anticipate challenges, evaluate options dispassionately, and act in alignment with long-term purpose rather than transient impulse. This foresight is not speculative but practical. It arises naturally from the clarity, coherence, and order that have been instilled through deliberate effort. Moreover, rebuilding the mind is inseparable from the practice of reflection. Each experience, each encounter, each error is an opportunity to refine the structure further. Thought is like a blade that must be continually honed. Reason is the whetstone, virtue is the tempering, and discipline is the repetitive strokes that maintain its sharpness. Neglecting this maintenance allows dullness to set in, eroding judgment, clouding insight, and weakening character. The person committed to reconstruction engages with thought constantly, examines intentions relentlessly, and calibrates judgment repeatedly, ensuring that the mind does not merely exist but thrives, that it is not passive but active, not reactive but deliberate. The influence of external distraction cannot be underestimated. To rebuild the mind is to create sanctuaries within the self where clarity, reflection, and purposeful action can flourish. Noise, triviality, and the seductive currents of popular opinion are not merely annoyances. They are corrosive agents that erode the foundations of reason and discipline if left unchecked. Guarding attention, choosing carefully what to absorb, and meditating upon principles rather than popular sentiment is essential. The mind, rebuilt in this manner, becomes a fortress, a place where truth can be discerned without distortion, where values can be upheld without compromise, and where thought and action are harmonized in pursuit of enduring excellence. The act of rebuilding is also inherently transformative. As reason, virtue, and discipline become habitual, the individual is no longer enslaved to the fluctuations of emotion, the impulsivity of desire, or the caprice of circumstance. The mind becomes luminous, not merely capable of thought, but capable of wisdom, not merely reactive, but intentional and deliberative. Each choice, each reflection, each disciplined act reinforces the structure and expands the capacity for judgment, clarity, and insight. The rebuilt mind is thus both a tool and a masterpiece, simultaneously functional and beautiful, resilient and expressive, capable of navigating the world with poise and integrity. The process demands persistence, for the mind resists change as nature resists disturbance. Old habits, ingrained biases, and unconscious impulses act like hidden foundations in a dilapidated building, resistant to demolition. Patience, courage, and methodical effort are required to dismantle them and replace them with reasoned structures. This labor is never finished. The work of rebuilding is perpetual, for the mind is dynamic and the challenges it faces evolve continually. To neglect vigilance is to invite erosion, to permit disorder, and to compromise the very resilience that has been painstakingly cultivated. Adversity is not merely an obstacle to be endured. It's the crucible in which the latent qualities of the soul are revealed, tempered, and elevated. Trials arrive not as arbitrary punishments, nor as whimsical intrusions into the rhythm of existence, but as instruments of refinement, deliberate and exacting, designed to expose weakness, illuminate blind spots, and summon forth strengths that would otherwise remain dormant. To encounter difficulty is to encounter oneself stripped of pretense, confronted by the raw materials of character, and invited to shape them into something enduring, resilient, and luminous. Do not allow misfortune to become the defining narrative of your existence. To be defined by trials is to surrender sovereignty over the story of your own life, to allow external circumstance to dictate the contours of identity. Misery and challenge may impose themselves upon your circumstances, but they need not dictate the substance of your being. Within every storm lies an opportunity for clarity. Within every upheaval, a chance for recalibration. Within every encounter with suffering, a summons to mastery over the self. The measure of a person is not in the inevitability of the trials they face, but in the deliberate manner in which they engage, endure, and transform under their pressure. The mind must cultivate an alchemy of perception, converting suffering into insight, frustration into discernment, and constraint into opportunity. Pain is a teacher whose lessons are exacting, unforgiving, yet infinitely generous to those willing to listen. The mind that bends in the furnace of trial, that subjects itself to the discipline of reason and reflection, emerges stronger, more agile, more finely tuned to the cadence of life's exigencies. It is through deliberate engagement with adversity, not avoidance of it, that the soul accrues fortitude, patience, and wisdom, qualities impervious to the trivialities of fortune. Consider the nature of struggle itself. It is rarely proportional, rarely predictable, and almost never convenient. To expect ease is to court disappointment. To embrace the inevitability of difficulty is to position oneself to extract from it the very essence of growth. Each challenge, however formidable, contains within it the seed of transformation. The tempest may uproot trees, yet it also clears space for new growth. The river may erode stone, yet it also polishes it to a brilliance it could not achieve alone. The wise do not resent the shaping hand of hardship. They recognize that to resist it with bitterness is to waste its formative potential. Trials demand of the spirit an unwavering attention to integrity and clarity of purpose. They illuminate the chasm between impulse and reason, between superficial desires and enduring values. In confronting difficulty, one is compelled to interrogate motives, to scrutinize intentions, and to align actions with the immutable principles of virtue rather than the transient seductions of comfort or expedience. Each encounter with adversity is thus an exercise in self-definition, the opportunity to articulate, in the language of deliberate choice, who one truly is and what one deems worthy of effort and loyalty. Resilience is not born of denial, nor of avoidance, but of engagement and mastery. The trials themselves are not enemies, but instruments of cultivation, their friction necessary for the sharpening of faculties and the strengthening of character. Just as the blacksmith hammers the raw metal into shape, so too does suffering strike at the spirit, forging it into a form capable of bearing the weight of life without fracture. To recoil from challenge is to deny oneself the alchemy of transformation. To confront it with awareness, deliberation, and reason is to extract from it a richness of insight and capability otherwise unattainable. Do not seek to erase adversity, nor to soften its edges artificially, for its clarity is revealed precisely in contrast to comfort. Ease may be seductive, but it rarely instructs. It is in the crucible of difficulty that judgment sharpens, patience matures, and courage solidifies into habitual force rather than sporadic reaction. The person who allows trials to define them becomes a mere reflection of circumstance, a passive actor buffeted by externalities, their potential stunted by an over-identification with suffering. The person who allows trials to refine them, however, transforms every encounter with misfortune into a meticulous exercise in self-cultivation, leaving the tyranny of circumstance impotent against the sovereignty of disciplined reason. Reflection is the bridge between challenge and mastery. Each trial, however harrowing, presents data for careful examination. which impulses led to suffering, which judgments were flawed, which virtues require fortification. The deliberate attention to this interior work converts experience into wisdom. The soul becomes a laboratory where misfortune is not a casualty but a reagent, producing reactions that illuminate strengths, reveal vulnerabilities, and yield strategies for the deliberate shaping of character. In this sense, hardship is a silent tutor, imparting knowledge that no comfort could ever provide, and offering clarity that the applause of others cannot confer. Equanimity emerges as both goal and instrument. By refusing to be defined by external disruption, one cultivates a stable center, an unshakable point of reference that persists even amid turmoil. The individual anchored in inner virtue experiences difficulty not as a determinant of worth, but as a crucible of refinement. Trials illuminate not the fragility of the self, but the potential for mastery, the capacity for transformation, and the enduring possibility of emerging not merely intact, but stronger, wiser, and more luminous. Every encounter with suffering is also an opportunity for discernment. It reveals priorities, exposes illusions, and tests the coherence of values. In confronting the harshness of life, one is compelled to distinguish between the essential and the trivial, between what requires response and what demands patience, between that which is within control and that which is not. The trials, then, become a mirror, reflecting not only the weaknesses that demand attention, but also the latent strengths that once exercised will render the individual resilient to future disturbances. Engagement with adversity demands a vocabulary of intentionality. One must act with awareness, resist reactive impulses, and cultivate the habit of choosing responses aligned with reason rather than emotion. In doing so, trials cease to be merely external events and become instruments of formation. Each challenge is a laboratory of practice, where patience is honed, courage is exercised, and wisdom is reinforced. To be refined by trial is not to passively endure, but to actively participate in the shaping of one's own soul, to wrest from difficulty the tools of inner sovereignty, and to insulate oneself from the arbitrary fluctuations of fortune. The process of refinement is cumulative and iterative. One trial builds upon the lessons of the last, and one reflection prepares the mind for the next. The conscious engagement with difficulty fosters a durable clarity of purpose, a heightened sensitivity to moral and practical truth, and an ability to navigate the vicissitudes of life with deliberation rather than haste. The person shaped by trial becomes a living testament to the principle that adversity, when met with reason, courage, and patience, is neither a misfortune nor a punishment, but a mechanism of elevation, capable of rendering the human spirit not fragile, but incandescent. Focus on inner mastery, not external validation among the ceaseless clamor of the world. One truth remains immutable. No accolade bestowed by others can sanctify the soul, nor can the applause of the multitude secure lasting peace. External validation is a mirage, ephemeral and capricious, a shallow echo of transient favor that fades with the passage of seasons. To hinge your worth upon it is to surrender the sovereignty of your own mind to the whims of chance, circumstance, and the judgment of those whose gaze is fleeting and whose motives are ever clouded by self-interest. True mastery begins within. It is an inward expedition, a deliberate turning of the mind upon itself to discern, refine, and cultivate the faculties that define our highest potential. It demands a relentless vigilance over thoughts, impulses, and judgments, an unwavering interrogation of our own assumptions, and a refusal to be swayed by the external tides of opinion. This is not vanity, nor is it arrogance. It is fidelity to reason, allegiance to virtue, and devotion to the timeless architecture of the soul. Consider the tempest of public opinion. How often do men and women tremble at the weight of another's gaze, or allow praise and censure alike to dictate their actions? How swiftly we are tossed from confidence to despair when the world whispers disapproval, and how easily pride inflates when approval is granted. Yet, neither the adulation of the crowd nor its condemnation can alter the intrinsic nature of our being. The only tribunal that truly matters is the one that resides within, the steady, impartial adjudicator that measures us by the standards of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Inner mastery requires the cultivation of self-sovereignty. To achieve it, one must embrace a radical autonomy of the mind, an unshakable commitment to acting rightly irrespective of applause or derision. It is to anchor oneself in principles rather than applause, in reason rather than rumor, in enduring virtue rather than fleeting acclaim. Each decision becomes an expression of character. Each thought a brushstroke upon the canvas of the self, painted not for the eyes of others, but for the refinement and fortification of one's own soul. Thought to pursue external validation is to construct a house upon sand. Popularity may rise and fall like tides. Wealth may evaporate like morning dew. Accolades may corrode into irrelevance. The applause of men is a fragile currency, easily spent and never fully reliable. But the mastery of the self is a fortress impervious to storm and time. Within this inner citadel, you are invulnerable to the caprices of fortune, impervious to envy, and liberated from the chains of comparison. The cultivated mind, disciplined and vigilant, stands in serene defiance of the world's trivial judgments. The path to inner mastery is neither swift nor comfortable. It demands courage, the courage to confront one's own weaknesses without excuse or evasion. It demands patience, the patience to endure solitude, reflection, and the slow, often imperceptible work of transformation. It demands honesty, the unflinching acknowledgement of our errors, the acceptance of responsibility for our choices, and the resolve to act rightly regardless of circumstance. Each moment of conscious self-direction, each choice aligned with reason and virtue, fortifies the citadel and distances the mind from the restless, transient allure of external praise. Furthermore, inner mastery fosters freedom. When the soul is anchored in itself, it is liberated from the tyranny of opinion and desire. One no longer acts to impress, to conform, or to appease. One acts because it is right, because it cultivates integrity, because it refines the self. In this autonomy lies serenity, the knowledge that your worth is self-determined, that your dignity is self-sustained, and that your life is a continuous exercise of reason rather than a reactive dance to applause or condemnation. Such a life is impervious to the ebb and flow of fortune, because it rests upon the immutable bedrock of character. Indeed, the cultivation of inner mastery is an art, and like all art, it demands practice, repetition, and reverence for the process. It is honed in quiet reflection as much as in the furnace of trial. Every difficulty, every insult, every moment of rejection is an opportunity to exercise sovereignty over the mind, to choose reason over reaction, virtue over vanity, wisdom over whim. To master oneself is to convert every obstacle into an instrument of growth, every affront into a mirror reflecting the virtues yet to be strengthened. Let the world offer its applause, and let it withhold it, both irrelevant to the work at hand. Do not be seduced by the fleeting praise of strangers, nor tormented by their disapproval. Instead, turn inward. Examine your thoughts, scrutinize your intentions, discipline your impulses, and cultivate your character with unyielding diligence. The approval that matters is your own, the quiet satisfaction of a mind in harmony with reason, a conscience aligned with virtue, and a life lived with purpose. Finally, remember that inner mastery is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. The soul is never complete. It is a garden to be tended, a temple to be strengthened, a craft to be perfected. And yet, in the deliberate practice of self-governance, In the cultivation of wisdom and courage, one discovers a profound serenity that no external accolade can rival, the serene knowledge that your life, regardless of fortune, has been shaped by reason, guided by virtue, and sustained by the sovereignty of your own spirit. Rise, therefore, not for the applause of men, but for the mastery of your own mind. In every decision, in every struggle, in every quiet hour of reflection, fortify the citadel within. Let the world remain as it is, with its noise, its distractions, and its transient judgments. You need only be faithful to yourself, vigilant over your own thoughts, and relentless in the pursuit of virtue. For in this, and only in this, lies freedom, strength, and the timeless dignity that no mortal hand can bestow or revoke.